Good evening, and a warm welcome to the third webinar in the virtual lecture series for continuous lecture series for continuous legal mediation education. I am Prabha Swami, advocate on record in the Supreme Court of India. I am also a trained mediator. My co-host is Ms. Reema Bhandari, a mediator, trainer, and practicing advocate in the Supreme Court of India. She will also deliver the vote of thanks at the end of the session. This is an ongoing lecture series organized by the mediators of the Supreme Court of India. The first lecture of the series was on the use of mediation skills in mainstream legal practice, the development of peace jurisprudence. The second session of the series had two lectures on the topics psychodynamics of mediation and challenges in online mediation. Besides this lecture series, the Supreme Court mediators, along with the Commonwealth Lawyers Association and the Youth Bar Association of India, is also conducting another international mediation webinar series, Post COVID Mediation Charting the Path of the Future. The first webinar focused on online mediation protocols, ethical values, regulation of cross border mediation, and mediation and legislative mechanism. The second, which was an all women's hosted webinar, was on resolving instead of adjudicating. And the third was on the scope of mediation in sports disputes. There was also a pre COVID seminar in the Indian Law Institute. All these webinars received high viewership and positive response across the world and were very informative and educative. These ongoing webinars are useful in acclimatizing us to the changing dynamics of the present day in view of the ensuing pandemic and to understand and overcome the problems facing the institution of mediation. Our esteemed speakers today are Ms. Laila Olapalli and Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain. Today's first topic of discussion is how lawyers can win in mediation. Our first speaker today is Ms. Laila Ollapalli. She is the founder of CAMP Arbitration and Mediation Practice Private Limited, a pioneering private mediation initiative set up in 2015 that seeks to promote mediation as a form of alternative dispute resolution in India. She is also a founding coordinator of the Bangalore Mediation Center, BMC, the court annexed mediation program of the High Court of Karnataka. She is a senior mediator and master trainer at BMC as well. After practicing as an advocate for over 3 decades in the Supreme Court of India and the High Court of Karnataka, she is now a full time mediator. Ms. Olapalli was trained at the Harvard Law School as also in the School of Law, Stanford University, Pepperdine School of Law, Judicial Arbitration and Mediation Services, and the Institute for the Study and Development of Legal Systems. In fact, one of her senior mediators has also trained with her in the Harvard Law School. Ms. Olapalli is on the panel of several national and international organizations. Since 2007, she has mediated several hundred cases and is nominated to the International Who's Who Legal of Commercial Mediation 2020. She was a member of the committee constituted by the Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee, MCPC, of the Supreme Court of India to work on a draft of the legislation for mediation in India. I would request her to kindly address us on how lawyers can win in mediation. Ms. Ollapalli.
Thank you, Prabha, and it's such an honor for me to be with all of you. Thanks for this opportunity. And in my talk today, I will cover the trends in dispute resolution and how lawyers can redefine win in mediation. So the trends in dispute resolution throughout the world is changing. We need to notice it and come abreast with it. We cannot overlook it because mediation is here to stay. I would like to start with the Global Pound Conference, which was held in 2017, held in 24 countries, surveying the response of stakeholders to a dispute. So this was held in 24 countries, including India, in Chandigarh, 2017. I'm sure many of you were there. The results showed that lawyers felt that their main role was to argue in court. When the litigants were surveyed, 70% of them said what they expected out of a lawyer was to get them a decent outcome in a reasonable time frame at reasonable cost. They wanted their lawyers to combine adjudicative and non-adjudicative processes. Lawyers therefore require a change in mindset. So that was the Global Pound Conference 2017-18. Next, let us look at the Singapore Convention. August 2019, 50 countries signed Singapore Convention, which made enforcement of a cross-border mediated settlement easy. It could be just taken across a mediated settlement if there is a breach, and if the breaching party is from a country that has signed to the convention, you can take the settlement there and enforce it straight away. India is a signatory to the Singapore Mediation Convention. When New York Convention was signed for arbitration, it really boosted the use of arbitration. The day it was signed, only 10 countries signed. Singapore Convention, the day it was signed, 50 countries signed. It clearly shows that in the world today, internationally, there is a crying need for multilateralism, for globalization, for collaboration, dialogue. So Singapore Convention. Third point, I was at a panel. I was a panelist in the American Arbitration Association last week. And the arbitrators are pitching for an arbitration and mediation clause. And the American Arbitration Association ICDR wing has come out with a wonderful clause, concurrent clause. So businesses, when they draft their agreements, they can put a dispute resolution clause which has arbitration and mediation initiated simultaneously. So everywhere we can see how there is a need to enhance the use of mediation. Of course, COVID has really shown us how mediation is a very adaptable and flexible process in any situation. Look at our domestic legislations. Today, there is lots of efforts going on for a standalone legislation for mediation. Many statutes are mentioning mediation. The Bar Council of India has made it mandatory to have one compulsory subject for law students. So this is the trend that's happening. And many of us, when we started 10 years ago, people hadn't even heard of mediation. There has been a dramatic shift internationally for mediation. How can lawyers make use of this opportunity? How can they translate it to a win? How can lawyers translate this opportunity in mediation to a win? That can happen when lawyers redefine what win is. We now need to redefine win. It has two parts. Winning in mediation has two parts. One part, peaceful resolution for your clients. Second part, how can we structure economic benefits for lawyers to participate in mediation? So there are two parts: peaceful resolution and economic benefits. In order to bring about a peaceful resolution, lawyers need to understand what mediation is. I'm going to use a simple story to bring that clear, to bring clarity. This is, I know, I'm sure all of you have heard it. This is about three blindfolded men who felt an elephant to describe what it is. One felt a trunk and said, it's a snake. The other felt the body and said, it's a mountain. And the third felt the legs and said, it's a trunk. And they started fighting because they were blindfolded. And we all know that elephant is a distinct animal. It's neither a mountain nor a snake nor a tree. What is a mediator's job? To remove the blinds of the parties who are actually seeing only parts of the whole dispute, the part that they have experienced. Mediator's job is to remove the blindfold, throw light on it, shine a torch on the dispute, and structure a negotiation table which comprises of a professional team who can help the parties take informed decisions. And lawyers are an integral part of that professional team. How do lawyers participate in mediation? What is their role? Number one, negotiating by creating value. This is a big concept in negotiation. Negotiating by creating value. When there is a dispute, the natural tendency, the natural inclination for disputing parties is to fight, allocate rights, get competitive, and claim value. There's a lot of tension in claiming value. But in mediation, we create value. How do we create value? I did an IP dispute. Employer said, the former employer said that there is infringement. The employee said no infringement. They fought over it. Criminals case is filed. IP infringement is a theft. 4 years in court. They come in for mediation. And what do we do at mediation? Along with the lawyers, we sit down and make a list of all the codes that they were talking about. They were talking about different codes. So what are those codes? We made a list of the codes, tried to understand from each side, what is it that they need that code for? Why do you need this code? Why do you need this code? We understood each one's underlying interest. Then we also understood what is their preference for each code. One code is more important to one person, another code is more important to another person. And then we trade off. And that is value creation. When we understand underlying interest, understand preferences, create trade-offs, there is value creation. And lawyers' role is to participate in that kind of a negotiation where we create trade-offs so that both parties find mutually acceptable settlement terms. Both are happy. That's why we call it win-win. So one role, negotiation using value creation. It's a very advanced technique in negotiation. Second role, help the lawyers to structure, the lawyers help the mediator to structure the negotiation. A dispute, conflict is outcome of failed negotiation. How do we make it a success this time? Who are the parties who should be present at that negotiation? What are the documents that are required? It's only the lawyers who can really contribute to that conversation. So lawyers help the mediator to design the mediation. Third, negotiation in mediation is under the shadow of the law. What does that mean? It means when parties take a decision in mediation, they should have all information about what are the possibilities for them in court. Otherwise, they cannot take an informed decision. Lawyers are the experts to provide that information. Mediator is a neutral, cannot give legal opinion. So it is the lawyers who provide that opinion. So that's the third reason. Fourth, lawyers help the parties by being their coach in negotiation. So lawyers become coaches for negotiation. And fifth, when a settlement is drafted, lawyers play a very important role. In arbitration and litigation, the judge or the arbitrator passes a reasoned award. In mediation, there is no reasoning. 99% of the cases don't reopen, but 1%, if it reopens, there should be absolute clarity in that settlement. It should fall within the framework of the law. It should pass legal scrutiny, and that's what the lawyers do. So this is a very important role for lawyers. Negotiation is a big topic. I try to say this in 10 minutes. When I conduct advocacy in mediation class, it is a full day program on negotiation. Lawyers have the skills, but advocacy in mediation is different to advocacy in litigation. You wear a separate hat. And a lawyer should be comfortable about changing those hats. So that is the role of the lawyer in mediation. What are the human skills that a lawyer must possess? Number one, listening. The listening that we learn in law schools is about speaking, arguing, influencing, because we have to convince the judge. But in mediation, the listening is to understand what does my party really want? What are the underlying interests? What is the underlying interest of the other party? What are the preferences? How do I create trade-offs so that there is value creation? The kind of listening has to be with empathy, open-mindedness. We lawyers, we do cross-examination. If we bring this, and that cross-examination creates a hostile environment, we have to change the way we ask questions. It should be strategic, open-ended questions. So one important quality, listening. Second important quality, take your stand, but remain flexible. When you come in for mediation, you might think, my client is entitled to 1/3 of the property in Delhi. But when you come in for mediation, you might realize that the property in Jaipur, your client is quite happy to settle this dispute if they get the property in Jaipur. There is an apology along with it. So take your stand, but remain flexible. Of course, I can go on to many other qualities like patience, perseverance. There are so many. But the soft skills in mediation are different, and we need to wear a different hat when you come in for mediation. So that is essentially how you get a peaceful resolution in mediation. Second point, how do you structure economic benefits in mediation? Lawyers, arbitration and litigation has been used for many years, but, and you know how to structure the fees there. But in mediation, mediation is a new kid in the block. You need to find how do you structure the fees when you participate in mediation. And unless you structure that, you will not use it enough. So structure your fees for participation in mediation. Secondly, remember that in mediation, it is not just a settlement that is considered to be a success. Through the process of mediation, parties have to take an informed decision. That is more important. In some countries, they do a mock trial before the actual trial so that they understand what the case is all about. In mediation, similarly, after participation, you get much more of an understanding of your case. And that is a valuable information which will help you make your trial, if it has to be, much more mindful. So to conclude, I am reiterating that the trends are for mediation to be coming forward, domestic and international trends. Lawyers need to redefine what win is. It has two parts. One part, peaceful resolution for your clients. Second part, structure economic benefits when you participate in mediation. These are two separate hats that the lawyers need to know how to wear. It's a trans advocacy in litigation and advocacy in mediation are different. It's a transferable skill. And when we learn to wear both hats, we really become lawyers that are relevant to the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ollapalli. Since the art of mediation is a constant learning experience, we are grateful for your invaluable inputs and insights, which will undoubtedly help us become better mediators. Our second topic today is how mediators deal with the biases and prejudices faced by them. And our second speaker is Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain. Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain did his LLB, LLM, and PhD from Delhi University. He is an officer of the Delhi Higher Judicial Service and is presently posted as a district and sessions judge, Northeast Delhi. He joined the judicial service in year 1992 and was promoted to the Higher Judicial Service in the year 2003. He was a member of the Academic Council of the National Judicial Academy, Bhopal. He was an advocate and a lecturer of law at the Campus Law Center, Delhi University, before he joined the judicial service. He is a regular resource person in the National Judicial Academy and other institutions. He has authored various articles on aspects relating to administrative law, mediation, and on other legal issues. He was posted in different jurisdictions and has dealt with a variety of matters ranging from civil, criminal, tenancy issues, etc. He has also been the judge in charge of the Delhi mediation centers at the Tis Hazari courts and Rohini courts. He is a trained mediator and is a trainer for mediators with national recognition. He has also received 40 hours training on the concept and techniques of mediation in the year 2005 from the Institute to Study Development in Legal System, California. He has received the training of trainers from the Center for Effective Dispute Resolution, CEDR, UK. He has conducted mediations in about 12,000 cases of all categories with experience of more than 12,000 hours to his credit. He has conducted more than 100 training programs on mediation and for trainers of mediation for judicial officers, advocates, and law students throughout India. He has participated as a speaker in various regional and national conferences on mediation and is a mediator accredited with the International Mediation Institute, Holland. I would request Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain to kindly address us as how to deal with biases and prejudices in mediation. Dr. Jain.
Thank you, Madam Prabha, for giving this kind introduction. I'm really, really thankful to you and all others. And I also extend my thanks to Rakesh Khanna ji and Jitendra Mohan Sharma ji for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share my views with the eminent mediators of the country. And it is my also honor and pleasure to share this program with Madam Leila Ollapalli, from whom I learned many, many things during that time when we were preparing the national manual on mediation in the Supreme Court under the guidance of Honorable Mr. Justice Eric Joseph. It was, Madam, really a wonderful and learning time with you. So thank you. The Madam has talked about how the advocates can contribute to solidifying the institution of mediation. As you know, we have started the mediation in this country in the year 2005. Although the Code of Civil Procedure was enacted in the year 2002, the Honorable Supreme Court constituted Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee, and then a subcommittee headed by Honorable Mr. Justice S.B. Sinha. They started a pilot project in Delhi District Court regarding the judicial mediation. Initially, 30 judicial officers, they were trained as a mediator. I was one of them to start mediation. And thereafter, we continuously doing the work to solidify, to institutionalize the concept and idea of the mediation. We have started gradually and gradually, and then we also introduced the advocates. And now the Madam has rightly said that now in Delhi Mediation Center, around 95-96% mediation work is handled by the advocate. How this topic came to in my mind, a few 1 or 2 months back, we were conducting a training program for the mediator, those who are attached with the Delhi Mediation Center Karkaduma courts. Then one of the mediator raised some issue, sanitization issue to combat the COVID in the mediation center. Then immediately I responded, okay, we can make arrangement for your sanitization, but best way to fight the COVID-19 is to develop your own immunity. And then it was struck in my mind that we as a mediator also need immunity from various virus and bacteria which they have infected, likely to infect our performance as a mediator. We as a mediator, infected by many, many things like our own perception, our prejudice, and our biases. Sometime as a mediator, we selectively facilitate the outcome of the mediation. We try to influence the mediation during the information gathering when we organize the information and when we facilitate the parties to develop options for settlement. So ultimately, some bias, prejudice, some perception in our mind ultimately affect the performance, our performance as a mediator, as well as the outcome of the mediation process. Sometime it may benefit one of the parties, sometime it may adversely affect one of the party. So we need to know our own problems. I always believe uh, in the management of the mediation process, and coupled with the management of the mediator himself also. In the entire process of mediation, the management of the mediator himself is very, very important. When we start with the introduction part, we can proceed to the joint session, single session, and lastly closing, whether settled or not. This management of mediator himself is very, very important. So I will be making a very short presentation on this, how to handle and manage our prejudice and biases. You know, whatever is our prejudice, bias, stereotypes, the genesis of all these problems is our perception. If we are able to manage our perception during the just before the beginning of the mediation, during the continuance of the mediation process, even after conclusion of the mediation, then we will be able to produce the more better result. Just 1 minute. if we talk about the perception, when we start our career as a mediator, we need to understand everyone has two eyes, but no one has the same view. As an individual and a part of the society, we might have two eyes like any other animal, biological animal, but none of us is having the same view. We differ on the same set of circumstances. We differ on the same set of circumstances, environment. If I put a very simple question to all of you to answer, there is one seat to whom you would like to offer your seat, a lady with a child, an old lady, an handicapped person, and a frail person. And why? Your answer might be different. Some of you would like to offer your seat to A because she is carrying a child. Some of you would be offering your seat to the B because she is an old lady. Some of you would be offering your seat to the C, his handicapped person. And some of you would be offering your seat to the D, who's a frail person. Seat is the one, circumstances are the same, but why we are having the different responses to the similar situation, why we would like to offer to different persons, it depends upon our own perception, how we receive, how we perceive the situation. I may receive the situation, same situation, in a different way. If we define the perception, perception is how we receive. First we receive, then we form the opinion, then we give our judgment. So this reception part, during the kind of information we are receiving, how the kind of information we are organizing, confidential information, the kind of options we are generating, first how we receive, how we perceive these information option, it matters for the mediator. What is simple perception? It is the process to select and organize, interpret any stimuli into the meaning, what we are receiving and how we are giving meaning to the circumstances. Suppose in every training program, if I conduct in a room, I used to ask how you visualize this training room. Some of them, they say ki seating arrangement is good. Some of participants used to tell ki no sir, seating arrangement requires some modification, some changes. This room is very big, this room is good, conditions are very conducive. The same room was visualized by the different person in a different way. So similarly, when we gather the information during the mediation, we visualize, we perceive the information given by the parties in a different manner. One question I always put to the participant in any training program, if there is a dispute between a father and son, the son is asking to purchase a motorbike because every day he is getting late to his school or college, but father is not purchasing the motorbike for his son because what the father consider, it is not safe to drive motorbike on the road nowadays, and he is having some financial issue. If I ask who is right, father is right or son is right, all of you must be having different answers depending upon your perception. For some of you, the education of the son is very important. Some of you, the concern of the father regarding the safety of the son is very important. So our perception, it varies from person to person. Different people perceive, very important for a mediator to understand. Different people perceive different things about the same situation. What is the mediation and the understanding of the mediation? Because in the mediation, the parties are referred. It is not the case which is referred for adjudication. We hardly do, or rather we do not do any adjudication in the mediation. Rather, we handle the parties with different situation. So we need to understand the perception A plus perception B plus perception C to find out the truth. Because to find out the truth, we need to make a search, a very deeper search to find out the truth. So one thing you will agree, that people assign different meaning what they perceive. When we start our mediation, we used to sit as a human being with different perception. I might have a different perception about the society. Mediator B might have a different perception about the society. And this I have noticed when I was working as a judge in charge of the mediation center, when I used to interact with different mediators in various programs. So for the same problem, they were having a different answer, different perception, their way of thinking, their way of accepting the problem, understanding the problem was entirely different. Our perception depends upon our knowledge, needs, belief, values, and most important, our assumptions, our attitude. How we are assuming what is my attitude, whether with positive attitude, with negative attitude, with tough, very restrictive attitude, a conservative attitude, liberal attitude, my perception to a problem, my understanding to a problem in a mediation, it depends upon how I look into the problem. As the Madam Ola Pilli rightly said, that the role of advocate is different in the litigation, role of advocate is different in the mediation. Similarly, the mediator, who may be a judicial officer, who may be an advocate, or maybe from a different walk of the life, his capacity, his output as a mediator is entirely different. Now, just because you are right doesn't mean that I am wrong. That is the key word for a mediator. It is not because one party is right or one party is wrong. Or we are having the tendency to become judgmental as a mediator many times. Why? Because we are perceiving one party as a right and another party not as a right or not correct also. To what I mean to say, when we are dealing with the parties, when we are conducting a mediation, we need to manage our own perception. We should not influence the entire mediation proceedings because of our own different perceptions. Even to understand the conflict, what we are handling in a mediation, we are handling the conflict in the mediation. And our perception, the perception of the parties, if you realize, is the genesis of the conflict. When we define the conflict, we used to say it is disagreement. That is the difference in the perception. They say incompatibility, difference in opinion. And our difference of opinion in the most of the time is based on our perception rather than the actual threat. In the morning, I was delivering a lecture on matrimonial mediation to the judicial officer posted in the family court in National Judicial Academy. I said, matrimonial dispute, matrimonial litigation is classic example of the difference in perception. Most of the matrimonial dispute, they are not based on the actual threat, rather they are based on the perception, how the husband is perceiving, how in-laws are perceiving, how the wife is perceiving, how her family members are perceiving the same situation. So that's why for a mediator, when we about to start a mediation, we need to control our own perception, because it will lead to our different biases and prejudices towards the parties as well as towards the mediation process. So that's why as a mediator, we need to develop a very big immunity, very strong immunity, not to be influenced by our own problems, our basic instinct, our internal conflict or internal ideology or internal assumptions. How, how you can develop your perception management strategies. It ensures the proper understanding of the information. The entire mediation process revolves around the gathering of information. Judicial record is, if it is a court annex mediation, judicial record is not before us. If it is a private mediation, pre-litigation mediation, even some of the parties' brief introduction of their dispute may be before you, but not the detail in the shape of pleadings, document, evidence, they are before us. So that proper understanding of the information given by the parties is very important. For that, we need to prepare ourselves. In many programs, I ask the mediator, many mediator, how do you prepare yourself on the day of your mediation? Are you physically prepared? Are you mentally prepared? Develop your credibility. And Madam has talked about the empathy is very important. As a mediator, even as a judicial officer, whatever capacity in which you are working and you are discharging your duties. I understand you, but without agreement or disagreement. If this is the feeling I develop in my mind as a mediator, in my personality as a mediator, I can remove many, many biases and many, many prejudice in my personality as a mediator. Flexibility, I always consider the flexibility in the approach of mediator. We always try to find out the flexibility in joint session and single session within the approach of the parties. But as a mediator, we also need to be flexible to control our own perception, coordination with the parties, and the entire mediation process. It is the information warfare. Information given by the parties, information given by the advocates, information given by the third party, if allowed to involve in the mediation, this information warfare and this handling of contradictory information. If we are not able to handle contradictory information, then we will be generating the perception and enhancing events. The time, the disclosure of information by the parties is likely to be contaminated by our own perception. Like I have seen, the mediator with commercial background, they always try to, do something in the interest and benefit of the creditor. Like a mediator who is having some background as a landlord. So he's always trying to influence the mediation proceedings in the favor of landlord. A mediator who is having some bad experience about the matrimonial dispute in the family, he always try to influence the mediation proceeding, a matrimonial mediation, in favor of the husband. So that's why it happens, because we contaminated the information given by the parties with our own perception. Then anger management, emotion management are also very important. It takes a lot of time to describe and detail about emotion and anger management. But one thing, we need to develop proper understanding of the information by controlling our perception. Now, coming to on the basis of perception, I said the perceptions is the genesis of the conflict, and the conflict we are handling either by the way of judicial process or in the ADR mechanism, including mediation, non-adjudicatory processes. In mediation, you will find in the formal legal process, in both the case, you will find the dispute is a subject matter. Dispute, nobody without any dispute would like come to the mediator. No, without any dispute, none would like to come to the court. The parties which are in the conflict, under conflict, they are the participant, and it is the resolution. In both adjudication and in mediation, there is resolution through independent third person. Very important. I am laying my emphasis on independent third party, and adjudicator is also independent person, and mediator is also independent third person. But in adjudicative process, it's the evaluation facts. There is no evaluation facts in the mediation. Involvement of law, parties' perception about facts and justice is secondary. What is important? The law laid down by the statute and law laid down by the superior courts. But mediation may be facilitative, evaluative, and the parties, the real decision makers are the parties. And the perception and evaluation of the justice by the parties is very, very important, how the parties they are evaluating. In the morning, I was telling the mediation is the only way of dispute resolution where the parties, they have given a right to participate in decision-making process. Even this is not true in case of Lok Adalat, even in case of arbitration also and judicial settlement also. But in the mediation, the parties, they evaluate the concept and idea of justice to their suitability, what they are getting or likely to get out of the mediation process. Now, entire concept of handling of bias and prejudice, it is, arising out of the definition of mediation. Mediation is a structured process, but it is impartial person who facilitate. Mediator is an impartial person. What he does, he facilitate the amicable resolution of dispute developed by the parties themselves. This is the basic understanding of our mediation definition. When we come to about the basic attributes to attach with the mediation process, again, impartial. What we have taught since we started our practice in the mediation, impartiality, neutrality of a mediator. Not of the mediator. This is again right of self-determination, confidential, and very important. What we advocate always before the parties, it is a qualitative process. Qualitative process means a mediator is expected to act in the good faith. The parties, they are also expected to participate in good faith. That's why we maintain the quality of the mediation process. And nobody can be allowed to compromise with the quality of the process. If we combine together impartiality, neutrality, right of self-determination, and qualitative part of the mediation process, it will lead to the necessity and importance and relevance to understand our own prejudice and biases based on our own perception. Right? Then, now, mediator neutrality, it is the core value of mediation. A person without neutrality, without impartiality, can never be expected to act as a mediator. A mediation process without the element of neutrality can never be expected, can never be presumed. So mediation, this neutrality, it doesn't mean that it should reflect from the mediator. But what is neutrality? There should not be any conflict of interest. Very important. It may be personal, it may be institutional. Many cases, there was a conflict of interest with me also. Immediately I disclosed to the parties. Immediately. कोई पैसे का तो नहीं होता, मगर when we are doing court, कि I might be knowing one of the party to the mediation. Then the procedural equality. As a judge in charge of the mediation center, I receive many complaints that the mediator is not giving equal opportunity to me in comparison to the opposite party. Maybe the less time is given in the joint session or single session. Maybe one party is not allowed to tell the complete, give or disclose complete information. This procedural equality can never be compromised by the mediator. And then the neutral outcome. What is neutral outcome? Unfavored outcome out of the mediation process is very important. You must be amazed, you must be wondering that mediator is a neutral person. How we can influence the outcome of the mediation? No, it can be, it is influenced. That's why I thought about this topic, that how we can develop our immunity as in a mediator. Let me tell you, in reality, this neutrality of a mediator is illusionary. It is little bit, I'm not saying it is very far away from the mediator, but it is little bit far away from the mediator. Perfect neutrality can never be possible. It is not practicable and nor attainable. Even in your personal life also, if I'm having 2 sons, 2 daughters, 2 brothers, 2 sisters, my approach to them would be different. They hardly command equal treatment from me. To say that I am a perfect neutral person, I think it is an utopian condition which can never be achieved. A mediation without any bias, prejudice, or favoritism is difficult. We as a mediator, we always victim of our own prejudice, our own favoritism, and our own biases. Like I was doing one mediation and matrimonial. The father of the wife was a rickshaw puller. He said, I spent more than 5 lakhs in the marriage of my daughter. Immediately I responded, you are a rickshaw puller. How it is possible for you to spend 5 lakhs? And I'm telling you, because of this, my prejudice, the dispute could not be resolved. How I reacted immediately, how I responded. Sometime I'm not saying that we are doing this deliberately. Our unconscious mental process affect the mediation. Sometimes we tend to carry or pull the mediation in one particular direction. To always remember, we talk about the duty of the mediator is facilitative, the role of the mediator is facilitative, he facilitates the process, but we forget one word. Sometimes this facilitation is the selective facilitation of process for favored outcome. Sometimes I want to favor husband, sometimes I want to favor plaintiff, sometimes I want to favor accused, sometimes I want to favor opposite party, sometimes I want to favor landlord, sometimes I want to favor tenant. So this selective facilitation of process of favored outcome is a very dangerous thing for a mediator that we need to control. And why? Because of this, sometimes mediator, they push proposal and pursue their own result. So it is the ethical duty of the mediator to be neutral and impartial. I said, but by saying the mediator is a neutral person, mediator is an impartial person, this impartiality and neutrality can never be developed. We need to develop. We need to work on it. We need to control our prejudice. We need to control our perception. We need to control our stereotypes. We need to control our biases. By giving in the definition that mediation is a neutral person, neutrality or impartiality can never be achieved. We as a mediator, we need to conscious about our assumption and biases about participant and processes. कई बार हम wife is asking suppose 50 lakhs as a permanent alimony. To what we may perceive sometime, oh, it is always wife who put a very high exorbitant demand towards permanent alimony without understanding the requirement of the wife, because she must be having children and other problems also. So what is important, we need to be aware about the impact of our diluted impartiality and neutrality on the parties as well as on the process itself. For that, we need to control our emotional uncertainty. Sometimes we need to control our emotional self-regulation is required. Only then we can achieve the idea of neutrality and impartiality in the mediation process. By saying I'm neutral person, I'm impartial person, we can never achieve this. What is prejudice? Now, information is given by the parties. It may be journal information, it may be confidential information, it may be given in the joint session, it may be given in the single session, it may be in the sub caucus when you are dealing with either the advocate or either parties separating the parties or with the parties separating the advocate. At that time, this time is very, very sensitive for the mediator, because we need to evaluate. And evaluation of information like joint session, it is important for the parties, it is important for the mediator in joint session because we gather, organize and exchange the information. But simultaneously, we are also evaluating the information given by the parties towards a settlement. So this evaluation of information should not be contaminated by our own prejudice. How we should evaluate the information without any judgment, without being judgmental. Now, because our prejudice, which are preconceived opinion, they are not based on any reason or any actual experience, right? But as a mediator, it is not too late to give up your prejudice. It requires only little bit practice. We need to control our prejudice. Even conscious prejudice, I can control. I'm having some some negative idea about the wife, I'm having some negative idea about the landlord or tenant, that I can control in the mediation. But some unconscious prejudice which are playing at the back of my mind, they really badly affect the outcome of the mediation proceeding. So for a mediator, don't, what is required, not only your neutrality or impartiality, but you need to develop your neutral zone in your personality as a mediator. Very important, neutral zone, right? And you as a mediator, we as a mediator need to actively engage in prejudice reduction strategies. Very important, very important. I'm having vast experience in conduction of the mediation, like electricity dispute. Suppose I'm conducting a mediation in electricity dispute. What is prejudice in my mind? Consumer is always at default, or electricity company is charging exorbitantly. How I can reduce, minimize this prejudice? For that, my reduction, we need to develop, we need to articulate reduction strategies. No prejudice, no favoritism towards any party. Or Mato, I used to tell, mediation is not a charity proceeding. These are very professional proceedings. We need to develop as a mediator professionally, because tomorrow we are looking for international commercial mediation. Mediation in India is growing, so we need to prepare. तो mediator की duties avoid to bias, or that I will be coming. How we can control our prejudice? These are all illustrative, not conclusive, not exclusive. Sometimes ignore our prejudice. Stay on the track of mediation. Ignore them. What is important for me? The resolution of the parties, dispute between the parties, on the basis of information, their underlying interests, the options developed by them, and any one of the option which is likely to be converted into potential settlement. Take preventive measures. For conscious prejudice, it is not a difficult job. If I'm having some prejudice in my mind, bring to attention to the parties. For example, like in a motor accident claim mediation, what I always think, that victim really needs compensation. I used to convey to the insurance company or owner or driver of the vehicle, offending vehicle, that what I think, that the injured person, he really needs compensation, suitable compensation. Right? Then balance your prejudice. That can be minimized. They can be minimized, but maximize the resolution. Little bit be assertive, be diplomatic. And if you want to become a good mediator, you need to be a diplomat. What is diplomacy? In my perception, I'm also victim of my own perception, my prejudice. A diplomat is the person who brings others to your fold. What in the mediation we are doing, we are going to the parties and then bringing the parties to our fold. In our fold, what is hiding in our fold? It is the settlement of the parties. To be diplomatic, transformative. Transformation is already required. Your reflective exercise, transformation, transform yourself. Little bit sense of humor, and very important, reflective, corrective. When I started mediation in 2005, I used to prepare a note, the way I conducted the mediation, the option, the information given by the parties, how I evaluate the options, the good things I have done in the mediation, the bad thing I have done in the mediation. In the year 2003-4, I used to prepare a note on it. So this self-reflection, self-correction improved my performance as a mediator a lot. Many times I used to control my own prejudices, my own biases in some way. Like very common prejudice in a matrimonial dispute, the wife always claim higher this alimony or maintenance. The in-laws are always at wrong side. They are always wrongdoer. How to gradually I could overcome this kind of thought process in my mind. Now, bias. In last, although this topic can take the entire day to discuss, but I think the allotted time is 20 more, not more than 20-25 minutes. So I'm rushing through the topic. Dekhiye, there is an assumption when parties, they are coming to you, a case is referred to you, or the private parties, they are approaching to you for mediation. They assume that you are not biased, you are neutral. And this, their expectation is reasonable and is important. If you are not biased, I do not find any much difference between prejudice, bias, stereotypes. I do not find much difference. It is very advantageous to the parties if you are not biased. What is the bias? You can define little bit. It is your tendency. Tendency is always your internal reflection, not the outer application, but it is first, it is internal reflection, then coupled with outer reflection. Tendency to favor a particular thing, person, belief, or accordingly act accordingly to that tendency. Sometimes the mediator try to develop proposal. When you try to develop proposal, you know, in mediation, what I consider the sensitive when you are doing active listening. I always propagated active listening without any judgment. Once you are judgmental, it means you are working under the pressure of your own biases and prejudice. And second, very important, when you can be the victim of your own prejudice and bias, when you are asking the hypothetical questions, when you are developing the options for the settlement, when you are facilitating the parties to develop option for the settlement, that time there is a big problem, you being infected by your own prejudice and your own biases. The most important, your personal bias, when you know somebody, your past association, done away with this personal bias because it affects your action as a mediator. Actual personal bias may remain unknown to the participant sometime, you know. The parties are, either of the parties may known to me. One case was referred to me by the Honorable Supreme Court. It was a matrimonial dispute. I was very well, one party was very well known to me since long. Immediately, I brought it to the notice of the opposite party. You know, this party is known to me for last 15 years. If this point, if this information or this fact is brought to the notice of the opposite party, you can control your personal bias. Whatever is your personal bias, personal victim, or if you are victim of personal bias, immediately disclose. Then situational bias is very important. Sometimes you have been influenced by the party, by a person who is not a party to the dispute. I'm telling you, sharing one example. When I was about 1 year back, I was posted in Rohini Court as a principal judge, family court. There was a big dispute. It was a matrimonial dispute, but the bar was divided into the two sections. One part of the bar was favoring the husband and another part of the bar was favoring the wife. Why? The husband was the advocate and the wife was the sister of a practicing advocate. Both of them, they were very influential person in the bar. So every day, when that case used to be fixed for mediation, the office bearer and other senior advocate, they used to come to me before the start of mediation. Sir, try to settle this. Try to do this. Sir, try to this. So this kind of situational bias can be controlled, because sometimes a party which is foreign to the actual disputant may have substantial interest in the outcome of a dispute. It may be a matrimonial dispute, it may be a property dispute, it may be commercial dispute, it may be IPR dispute, whatever may be the kind of structural bias, the nature of mediation you are doing, the kind of dispute you are handling in the mediation. Free, from your mind as a mediator. इसलिए हमेशा I always convey to the mediator कि when you start your mediation, first prepare yourself. Without any preparation, you cannot and can never do mediation. Mediation is not like that. It physically you come into the mediation room, sit on the table, call the parties and start to gathering the information. Physically, you may be good, but you need to be mentally very strong, very, very strong also. And then this cognitive barriers, you know, when madam has talked about the negotiation, a advocate need to understand the negotiation, but in the negotiation, the perceptive barrier or cognitive barrier is very, very important. To neutralize cognitive barrier, to understand or to minimize the perceptive barrier is very important. Why cognitive, what is perceptive barrier is a bias, my thinking pattern, the way I used to think. My previous decision in the similar circumstances, my selection of information, that is again, I am cautioning all of you that accept and evaluate the information given by the parties in a neutral way. Selection of information suitable to my ideas. When I'm telling you, when a judicator, when we used to write judgment, sometime we select that part of evidence which would favor the party in whom we are likely to pass judgment. Everybody is selective in nature. Nobody can say that he is not selective. Your emotional attachment, your self-interest also. So this control your cognitive barrier. Then another type of this bias is confirmation bias. That's like cognitive bias, the picking of the information which is supporting my preconceived belief. What is important for me? Research and evaluate the information from different perspectives. Different parties are present before you. They are giving different perspective of their dispute. We need to evaluate information from their point of view, not my own point of view. No contamination, right? This preconceived ideas which we are having the tendency to shown to be correct. I may be correct. You know, when I conduct any training program for referral judges, sensitization program for any referral judges, I always caution them, you don't assess the settlement by your own standard of adjudication. Never assess. It may appeal to your regions, it may not appeal to your regions. You may feel that one party has lost something, but once the settlement is result or outcome of the negotiation, bargaining, deliberation, options, consideration by the parties, then the referral court has no role to play to modify the settlement or to assess the settlement. So sometimes we are having the tendency to assess the information by our own standard of assessment. This is a very dangerous thing for a mediator. Now, anchoring bias, saying almost one piece of information to shape decision. I use one piece of information, forgetting another piece of information. Overconfidence bias. Sometimes parties are overconfident, sometimes mediator is overconfident. So in this process, we ignore the actual outcome or decision making in the mediation process. How we can control awareness, like prejudice, recognize your bias, minimize impact of biases. In every program, everywhere, impact analysis is very, very important. Impact analysis, it leads to the correction in our behavior. It leads to the reflection in our output. To this, be aware of your own biases. with the passage of time, with my practice for the last 15 years, last 10 or 15 years as a mediator, I'm now able to control my many prejudice and my many biases, because my background is traditional Hindu family. My relatives, they are from the business community, very following the traditional values. So I was having some strong biases, prejudices, but with my practice gradually now I am able to control my biases. Information, data, gather all the information necessary from the parties without mixing with your preconceived ideas. Open to other ideas and opinion, because in mediation, diversity of the information is very important. For very positive settlement of the dispute in a mediation, the diversity of the information is very important. We always try to avoid diversity, different opinion, because on the basis of different opinion, we can find the real truth. And ultimately, I talk about the reflection and your relational impact. Whatever kind of bias, prejudice, perception, stereotypes you are having, because they are the part of your personality, you cannot control them. Remove them in one day. It requires constant practice, perseverance, but try to study their impact on the mediation process, at least at the end of the conclusion or at the conclusion of the mediation. So, sir, my humble request to all of you as a mediator, try to develop your own immunity as a mediator. Don't be infected by your own preconceived ideas. Don't be infected by your stereotypes, bias, perceptions, prejudices. Try to achieve maximum neutrality and impartiality in the mediator. It is the reasonable expectation of the parties, because your little bit bias towards any belief, any person or any result may affect adversely the outcome of the mediation. And then the selective facilitation is a very dangerous thing. If you want to become a good mediator in the time to come, this do facilitation, but not selective facilitation of mediation process. So thank you. I think, madam, I little bit exceeded my time. I'm sorry for this, but thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share some ideas about the impact of biases and prejudice and how we can develop, because every day nowadays everybody is talking about the immunity. So as a mediator, we also need to develop our own immunity also. Thank you very much, madam. And thank you, Khanna Sahab and Sharma ji, for giving me this wonderful and excellent opportunity. I'm really grateful to all of you. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain, for enlightening us on these various aspects. And this will certainly help us tackling these common biases and prejudices and further strengthen the institution of mediation. Now, Ms. Reema Bhandari and I will be taking questions from the participants. Ms. Reema.
So my first question is actually, it's been asked by Mr. Jamila Ali from Guyana. So, and that's a question actually specially addressed to Ma'am Laila Lapale. So, ma'am, the question is, experience, basically the question is with regard to the role of lawyers. How do they behave, whether they prefer adjournments or they are more participative towards taking adjournments, or they're more participating towards the settlement. So this is in short the
Okay. I want to tell Jamila Ali that I saw her question, but I was unable to somehow reply because as I entered, it was not going. But anyway, my answer is, if the mediator is professional, handles the mediation in a manner that he or she is professional, she gives the confidence to the parties and to the lawyers, and gives the lawyer an important part in the mediation, the The lawyers become professional, and they also become part of this professional team. They understand the benefits of mediation. A lot depends on how the mediator handles the mediation. Mediator becomes professional, they become professional. That's my answer.
The next question to either of our learned mediators is, my question is that when can we expect a formal mediation law in place in India, given the increasing popularity of ADR mechanisms? I could request either of you to answer the question.
Um, I was part of a committee. Can I answer that, Dr. Jain? And after
Madam, please answer.
the MCPC had constituted a committee to draft, to help in drafting a legislation for mediation. And of course, the committee, the MCPC does not really, they don't, but they can make suggestions. They don't pass the law, but they can make suggestions. So this committee has done that work and it's been submitted to the ministry. I understand it's been submitted to the ministry. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So the next question, I would ask Sudhir sir to answer this. The question is, sir, that should there be a provision for the mediator to give a self-declaration or undertaking, just like an arbitrator, to ensure that there is no element of conflict of interest between him or her and the parties?
And the madam has said that the committee constituted by the MCPC just submitted the draft, and I hope that committee must have taken care of this aspect also. But if we gone through the mediation and conciliation rules which are drafted or implemented by the different high court, this how to avoid the conflict of interest is taken care of in each and every mediation and conciliation rule also. And this kind of declaration can be given at the threshold of the mediation, कि mediator is not having any conflict of interest, because this is very vital part of avoidance of conflict of interest. When we start our mediation, when we give introduction or used to make opening statement before the party, the foremost important thing to disclose if we are having any conflict of interest. Because it will ensure the maximum neutrality during the mediation process also, without any apprehension of favoritism in the mind of the parties. So it can be done, sir, no problem. Rather, it would be a welcome step to establish the institution of mediation also.
Thank you, sir.
One question we have is how far, sorry, thank you. One question we had is how far did the mediators take advantage of settling the matter during lockdown of COVID-19, and how much was mediation successful through online mediation?
Madam, if I answer to this question, I was deliberating with the mediators of Delhi Mediation Center, Karkaduma Court on future of online mediation. When Honorable Mr. Justice S.B. Sinha was the chairperson of Mediation and Conciliation Project Committee, we prepared a national plan for implementation of mediation. And in that plan, we also included e-mediation. Now this very different situation, a peculiar situation given by this pandemic, have given a new insight about the mediation. Today, if we convert the physical mediation into the e-mediation completely, it is not possible. So what I suggested, we need to develop a hybrid kind of mediation, like initial proceedings of the mediation can be conducted by video conferencing or by virtual mode. But when it comes to the later part of the mediation, option generation, when the settling of the terms and condition of the settlement, then the parties can be called physically. So initially, we can start e-mediation, virtual mediation in simpler cases, like recovery matters, like simple suit, MACT dispute, labor management dispute, those who are comparatively simple. But in some kind of mediation like matrimonial dispute, family dispute, highly contested commercial dispute, I think to start with the e-mediation completely, I think may not be successful or very workable idea, at least in the present today's condition and the availability of the infrastructure also. But we can start, like I also suggested in the court work also, court management, like completion of pleadings, framing of issues, submission by way of affidavit, it can be done by virtual mode. But actual cross-examination, hearing of the arguments, and the some other part, complicated, a complex part of the court proceeding, they require the physical presence of the parties. So that way, we can transform the physical mediation into e-mediation, that we can plan our studies for next 3 years, 2 years, or 5 years, whatever it suitable to the conditions. So this is my idea. Today, if we resort completely to the e-mediation, it may not be a workable idea, although we are doing e-mediation.
Uh, can I have a slightly different point of view on that?
Yes, ma'am.
During the COVID period, we have done couple of commercial mediations, inheritance disputes, matrimonial dispute, sports dispute, all very well organized and conducted, all on Zoom. So I am a real convert of the online virtual mediation. And of course, there are some cases when the parties really want a physical mediation, but we have been very successful with different kinds of mediations or completely conducted online.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, my next question is actually related to this online mediation only. That's why I'm asking this question. Is how to handle confidentiality while doing online mediation. It is actually a question asked by so many people, and so I just thought that it is connected with this one. So you can please enlighten us on that.
Okay. Should I go first, Dr. Jain, or you'd like
Yes,
to go
madam,
first?
please.
Okay. So confidentiality is very important. And this is very new. There are concerns about hackers. So as a mediator, one, we have to be very comfortable with technology. As I often say, prior to technology, mediation was driven by one horse. The carriage was driven by one horse. But today, the mediation carriage on a virtual mediation is driven by two horses. You have to be equally good with your mediation skills and technology. So when you're good with technology, you will know how to ask the parties what are their concerns about confidentiality, and then you address that. So what I would do is I ensure to lock the facility when parties come in. I record, I control the recording in all those facilities. Then when private sessions, somehow we are not yet ready to feel completely comfortable with waiting room. So I send separate links. They're not worried that there will be any confusion. So each time I do a separate session, I send a separate link to each of the parties. And with that, you gain their confidence. So I believe confidentiality can be very well protected if the mediator knows how to handle technology and address all the concerns of the parties.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Actually, this is a very important question. And Sudhir sir, you want to add something to this?
Just as Rima, I would like to say, in entire mediation process, since the day I started my mediation practice, this aspect of confidentiality in mediation process is always overemphasized. What we need the confidentiality in the mediation process to the extent which is desired by the parties. Now, over to the virtual mode of the mediation, what we can do, we can take an undertaking in the shape of form that the contesting party, they will be following the confidentiality, or it is done in many countries in the private mediation. Before the start of mediation, they used to fill the form to follow the norms of confidentiality also. Even I conducted one e-mediation in a matrimonial dispute just few weeks back. So I could not satisfy myself that the party, they were really observing the idea of the confidentiality. many unwanted persons, they were present with the husband and the wife also. They were interfering in the mediation. Confidentiality doesn't confine that the information given by one party should not pass on to the opposite party. The confidentiality also include that the same party should not be allowed to involve unwanted persons or third party in the mediation. They are also likely to breach the idea of the confidentiality. The maximum observation of the confidentiality depends upon accountability of the parties. Once the parties submitted to the mediation, they're likely to submit to the mediation, they must follow all the basic nuances and norms of the mediation also. Or for this, we can take a declaration from them also. Okay, now there shall not be any breach of confidentiality. Tomorrow, if there is any problem, if given by either of the parties, the mediator can say, ki, look, I am having the declaration given by both the parties ki they will follow the this norms of confidentiality. This can be done on the safer side also. So this is my idea. Thank you.
Absolutely. The confidentiality agreement, especially in private mediation, we take confidentiality, we sign, get both parties signed to confidentiality, both parties signed to no conflict declaration. I mean, to answer the earlier question. You're right, Dr. Jain.
The last question of the evening is whether mediation can be extended to all types of cases or does it have any limitations?
Madam, in 2010, the judgment delivered, AFCON judgment was delivered by the Honorable Supreme Court. The author of that judgment, Honorable Mr. Justice R.V. Ravindran and Honorable Mr. Justice J.M. Panchal. They have given the categories of the cases which are suitable for mediation, which are not suitable for mediation. At this stage, we need to understand it is the category of cases. There is no category of case where the mediation cannot be conducted. One category of cases may be more suitable in comparison to another category of the cases. But as we are progressing, we are gaining experience, we are having the inputs. I'm telling you, the mediation can be conducted every type of cases. What we need, we should be, our judicial system must have some as to refer every type of cases. I'm telling you, I have conducted mediation in land acquisition cases, labor management dispute, motor accident cases, environmental issues, criminal cases, civil cases, matrimonial cases, insurance cases, personal claim cases, whatever may be the category of the cases. I have even the AFCON judgment said, like probate cases, letter of administration, the impersonation, including fraud, those cases may not be suitable, but it cannot be said that mediation cannot be done in this type of cases. So every type of cases is suitable for mediation. What is important requirement? There must exist element of settlement. There should be possibility of settlement. To refer every kind of dispute, we are ready to take, we are ready to handle.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Olapalli, would like to say something on this?
Yes, Dr. Jain is right. It is, other than criminal matters, civil disputes can be handled if there is an element of settlement.
Let me just one or two lines to add. Actually, what is happening, what we are understanding the mediation, mediation is confined to Section 89 of CPC. But my view is Section 89 of the Code of Civil Procedure is the part of mediation. Mediation is much wider than the scope of Section 89. Just 1 minute, I will give you two examples. When I took over the judge in charge of Delhi Mediation Center, T. Sajari Court, I have noticed the motor accident claim cases are not being referred for mediation. So I had a meeting with the presiding officer of Motor Accident Claim Tribunal. I said, sir, kindly refer few cases for mediation. Then he said, no, sir, our cases are more suitable for Lok Adalat because on one day, all the officers company, they are coming and we are settling large number of cases. Okay, I will not disturb your schedule, but you can do one thing. The cases which are pending before you, in which the vehicles are not insured. Ultimately, liability rests upon either on the owner or driver or on both. Kindly refer those cases for mediation. He referred few cases, and I'm telling you, 90% cases were settled for by the process of mediation. Another category of cases, criminal compoundable cases. Section 89 CPC does not include criminal compoundable cases. But I called the meeting of all our learned metropolitan magistrate, those who were dealing with the criminal cases. I said, refer. Section 320 CRPC is talk about the compounding offenses with the permission of the court or without permission of the court. Some cases may require wider range of negotiation, like in personal injury cases, 337, 338, 323, 325, 324. So those cases can be referred for mediation. Ultimately, many of large number of those cases were settled. So every case is suitable for mediation. We cannot say that this particular category is not suitable for mediation. Rather, we need to believe in the process and institution of the mediation, what is important for us. Yes. Thank you, ma'am.
Just to add one sentence, we know that criminal cases, attempt to murder, but it's a property dispute, was referred for mediation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Jain and Ms. Ollapalli, for all your clear answers and all the information you gave us. And now if I could request Ms. Rima Bhandari to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Prabha, and good evening, everyone. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. I, on behalf of all the mediators of Supreme Court, would like to extend a hearty vote of thanks to the honorable speakers, Ma'am Laila Ollapalli and Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain, for gracing this occasion by setting aside the time and the effort they have put in to contribute to the virtual lecture series. I also wish to thank the attendees who have taken out time to attend the webinar and to participate by asking very relevant questions in that. The amazing and fascinating webinar has been extremely informative and educational. The success of the webinar can only be attributed to the brilliance and profound knowledge of our esteemed speakers, Ma'am Ollapalli and Sudhir Kumar Jain sir. The insights they have provided on these contemporary issues in today's world are extraordinary as well as essential in the world of mediation. I express my gratitude to Ma'am Ollapalli for enlightening us on how lawyers can win in mediation. Ma'am has explained and told us about the various qualities we need to imbibe to become a better mediators, and also how as a lawyer we can be a good help in the mediation process also. I would like to add here one thing is that the vastness of, option in this in human thirst, I would say, for justice has been constant and throughout history. Yet I would say that the choice is not singular anymore. There is the vastness of options in unprecedented today, and alternative method of dispute resolution, especially mediation, are now more sought after than ever before. In the ever-evolving world of law, ma'am, the lawyers definitely, I agree with you, that if they provide choice from the adjudicative and non-adjudicative processes, they become more sought after people. Definitely, the parties will go more happily, as you rightly said, that we will be helping in providing justice to them. We as lawyers unquestionably need to adapt and be the pioneers for change in ever-evolving world of dispute resolution. I'm also extremely grateful to Dr. Sudhir Kumar Jain for providing fascinating insights on the prejudices and biases of mediators while conducting mediation. As rightly said by Sir, perception is the genesis of conflict. And yes, sir, definitely neutrality has to be established. We need not to say always that we are neutral. We have to establish with our communication and by using different techniques and by our behavior. So in this day age, in this day and age, the mediators, I would say, they aspire and they endeavor to meet their ethical duty of neutrality in mediation. We all do so, sir. Yet, their ability to actually conduct mediation without bias, prejudice, or favoritism to one party is extraordinarily difficult, if not impossible. But I'm sure that the guidance provided by you today will enable us to minimize and exterminate our biases and prejudices as mediators, however minute they may be. I cannot thank everyone enough for their involvement and contribution in this program and in making the series a resounding success. Once again, I want to say that we all are so grateful to our speakers on this at this stage, that they have taken out their time and discussed, and rather I would say enlightened us with very important topics. And I would rather personally say that it was great pleasure on my part also to attend this webinar and to gauge knowledge from the issues which are of utmost significance, like confidentiality, like the role of lawyers, like making structuring the economic side of this profession, because that is also, as Leila ma'am rightly said, we need, it motivates a lot if that all things are structured, and we can handle a lot of, I think, problems if we work on those lines also. And in the end, yes, we will continue to conduct more webinars for discussion on various other contemporary issues involving mediation. And we will be always again asking our eminent speakers to be a part of our series, to keep on guiding us, to keep on enlightening us, and hope to meet everyone again virtually very soon. Till then, stay safe. COVID is there, so my best wishes to everyone here to stay safe and hearty and healthy. Thank you. Goodbye.